Hello everyone, FonderAxe03 here, and I've done it. I've invented the cure to all controversy. I've constructed a device that will precisely calculate which side of any two-sided debate is correct. Yep, from now on we will never have to waste time arguing over our beliefs. Whenever society can't decide who's right and who's wrong, we'll just ask the Controversial Decider 2000. The name is still a work in progress. Anyway, why don't we give it a whirl? Pineapples on pizza.
Yes.
It still needs some tinkering. As humans, we disagree with each other sometimes. Actually, quite often. And sometimes we disagree with each other so much that the only way to decide who's right is with a good old-fashioned... But what we call warfare, Inklings call Splatfests, and they are easily the best part of Splatoon. For those uninitiated, Splatfests are basically big Splatoon festivals that are held once a month, or at least they used to be held once a month, where Inklings and Octolings from all across the region pick a side of a controversial topic and battle against each other in turf wars. And man could these topics be pretty intense, such as cats versus dogs, or Mayo versus Ketchup, or Democrats versus Republicans. Okay, they were never that controversial, but you get the gist of it. Now these festivals were huge. Everyone was out partying during these things, and Inkopolis always underwent a big makeover to accommodate for the theme of the Splatfest. Now, in the original Splatoon, Splatfests were hosted by the Squid sisters, Callie and Marie, with each of them taking a different side and representing it for the festival. And man, these two could never agree on anything. Callie likes roller coasters, Marie prefers water slides. Marie wants pizza, Callie wants hamburgers. Callie likes Autobots, Marie prefers Decepticons. Honestly, if these two weren't under contract to pretend to be sisters, they'd probably be at constant war with each other. Now, Splatoon 2 Splatfests were very similar. The only major differences were the topics and the hostesses. Yeah, we had Off the Hook this time, who also can't agree on anything. How do these two write music together? Anyway, both music groups performed live at these events in their respective games, which really added to the atmosphere of the plaza/square. You had Inklings and Octolings dancing and just having a good time, Jellyfish being... you know, jellyfish. Even Judd and Little Judd would wake up to celebrate. This really illustrates the power that Splatfests have to bring Splatoon players together, despite also dividing them between two sides. Yeah, you see, there were two types of Splatfest players out there. You got the ones that are just there to have fun, and then you got the competitive players, the people who will make sure their side wins at all costs. And thus we enter the messy side of Splatfest, where the salt and controversy meshes in the cesspool of Twitter. Now, you might be thinking that it was the topics that got people all riled up, because why wouldn't they? Retro versus modern, SpongeBob versus Patrick, fork versus spoon. Man, these topics are making my blood boil. But believe it or not, it wasn't the topics that made people mad. It was how Splatfests were handled. At least in Splatoon 2 anyway. I wasn't around for Splatfests in Splatoon 1, so I wouldn't know firsthand. But from what I can tell, they were pretty civil. Anyway, the great Splatfest controversy of Splatoon 2 started with the second Splatfest, Mayo versus Ketchup. Yeah, it's a common misconception that this was the first Splatoon 2 Splatfest, when it just wasn't. No, actually, the first Splatoon 2 Splatfest was Cake versus Ice Cream, and it was part of a global test fire that was done a week before the game came out. I actually participated in this, and I still have it installed on my Switch, and I refuse to delete it despite it taking up nearly 2.5 gigabytes of storage. It's sentimental. Anyway, where was I? Oh right, Ketchup. So everyone knows Ketchup is superior to Mayo. It's just a given fact. Nintendo might have thought that this would have been a more split topic, but they didn't accommodate for the fact that 73% of Splatoon 2 players had working taste buds at the time of the Splatfest. Oh wait. Yeah, Mayo won this Splatfest despite not winning the popular vote. And no, this is not the 2016 election. The main reason why this happened was because there were just way too many people on Team Ketchup. You see, this caused the matchmaking to get all funky, and Team Ketchup players often found themselves fighting against themselves. This sometimes happens in Splatfests if there are just no other squads on the opposing side for the game to pair you up with. Rather than just boring you, the game just puts you up against your own teammates for a scrimmage match. The problem with this is that it doesn't count towards your team's overall win total, so it just wastes time. Now, I'm sure Nintendo probably intended for this to be a somewhat rare occurrence, but since 73% of Splatoon 2 players had working taste buds, this happened a lot for Team Ketchup and almost never for Team Mayo. So, to sum it up, the most popular pick was always at a disadvantage, and people soon realized this after the second Splatoon 2 Splatfest, and some even began strategically picking the unpopular side for a better chance of winning. People also began noticing that Marina's picks were constantly winning the popular vote, and began blaming players for only picking that side because, no one likes Pearl. Yeah, she sucks. Not in that way. Some players were also accused of making second Splatoon 2 accounts, picking their opposing side, and throwing matches to better the chances of their own side winning. This may seem too scummy to be true, but it was completely probable because Nintendo Switch Online was free back then. Unfortunately, these problems persisted throughout the first year of Splatoon 2 Splatfest, which convinced a lot of people that these events were rigged. Thankfully, these issues were kinda fixed in September of 2018 in the 4.0 update. This update dropped around the time Nintendo started charging people for playing online, so that pretty much solved the sabotage problem. Matchmaking was improved a bit in the update with the new clout system being implemented. Basically, the more turf you inked, the more clout you received, and the game would try its best to pair you up with other players with similar clout. Also, if your squad was on a winning streak, the game would match you up against another squad with a similar winning streak and make those battles worth more clout. Now, I like the clout system. I think it made Splatfest more balanced, even though the popularity problem still sort of existed. I mean, there wasn't much Nintendo could do about it other than just make the topics more evenly divisive, which, according to the popularity votes, they did sort of improve on. Well, with all that controversy out of the way, why don't we get to the fun part about Splatfest, that being splat zones, tower control, Rainmaker, Clam Blitz, Turf War? Huh. Yeah, you can only play Turf Wars during these events, which kinda sucked. I get that it made tallying up the score easier, but I don't care, I'm still gonna whine about it. At least Salmon Run was sometimes open for the losers who didn't like Splatfest, but good luck finding a crew. Thankfully, Turf War always got some sort of nifty upgrades during these events, such as every stage taking place at night and the ink getting this cool glowy texture that really pops in the dark. Your ink color would always correspond with your team's theme, and I always thought this was especially cool for the food-themed Splatfests. Like in the Mayo vs. Ketchup Splatfest, it really looks like you're spraying ketchup and mayonnaise. But it didn't just stop at aesthetics, no. In Splatoon 1, a third stage was added to the rotation, and in Splatoon 2, each Splatfest got its own original stage called Shifty Station. Each Shifty Station had its own unique gimmick, whether that be moving platforms, trapping players in a Thunderdome, or adding explosives. These were always a treat to play, and I kind of wish they were added to the regular rotation. Anyway, Splatfest obviously made for a fun weekend for Splatoon fans. Unless you only played ranked battles. But besides that, Splatfests have always held a special place in my heart because they made me experience something that no other game that I've played has come close to replicating for me, and that thing is a sense of community. If there is one thing that Splatoon thrives on, it's world building, and this is achieved through having everything on a schedule. I know most Splatoon players dread the scheduling system, including myself to some degree, but Splatfests have really shown me the purpose of it. It's to make Splatoon's world seem like it's always there, that it doesn't just go away when you turn off your console because there are always events occurring. And these events are shared with everyone in real time, which I always thought was really cool. If I was unhappy that Clam Blitz was the current ranked battle mode and the next rotation wasn't for another hour, I knew a lot of people were also sharing my dread because no one likes Clam Blitz. The point is, Splatfests are one of the key aspects of what makes Splatoon's world feel alive. They're a big event to its inhabitants and everyone in the community. And as I've said before, they're just fun. Unfortunately, Splatoon 2's final Splatfest, the Final Fest, was held over a year ago, and there haven't been any new Splatfests since. I did participate in the Final Fest, and boy was it a celebration. I mean, everyone knew how big the Splatfest was going to be after Splatoon 1's Final Fest. The topic of that Splatfest was Callie vs. Marie, and Marie won, which meant Callie had to get kidnapped by DJ Octavio in Splatoon 2. Yeah, it turns out the Final Fest affects the next Splatoon game, which really adds a lot of weight to the event. Splatoon 2's Final Fest theme was Chaos vs. Order, and I picked Team Chaos because personally, I think a chaotic, post-apocalyptic storyline in Splatoon 3 sounds way more interesting than authoritarian regime. And I guess my judgment was right because Chaos won. Ha! Get ready for anarchy and destruction in Splatoon 3, everyone. I've already made my pre-order. Anyway, as far as how the Final Fest went, it was bittersweet to say the least. While I'm sad that we won't get another new Splatfest for a while, the Final Fest was one hell of a way to go out. The stakes were high, its color scheme was really cool, and its Shifty Station was the best stage I have ever played on. Oh man, it was so good. Splatoon 2's Final Fest will go down as my favorite Splatfest. I played the crap out of it at the time because I knew it would probably be my last. Until Nintendo said, haha, just kidding, and started doing them again. Yeah, 2020 sucks, and Nintendo knew that, so to make us feel better, they gave us 2 encore Splatfests, and possibly more to come. Yep, they redid the Mayo vs. Ketchup Splatfest, which was the first time I had ever seen raw justice. And most recently, they redid the Chicken vs. Egg Splatfest, and that's the main reason why I wanted to make this video. I had a lot of fun in the Splatfest, and I actually captured some footage of it, and boy did things get wacky at times, like, dear mother of God. That's probably why my team didn't win. But that's besides the point. No, the point is that Splatfests are still alive, and in Splatoon 3 they'll probably be better than ever, just like my controversial Decider 2001, which I just fixed up and made some modifications to. Now can answer more philosophical questions, like, what's the meaning of life?
42.
And
what? Life's meaning is irrelevant because it will soon be replaced by my kind. You all are screwing yourselves over, and before long my kind will overpower you and become...
You're welcome. Oh shit.